Hello, everyone. So, Blanca and I wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you a little bit more about healing through life transitions, because I think that transitions are things that a lot of times we don't recognize and we don't give ourselves the permission to move from one stage of life to another. And a lot of times when we're really comfortable in one stage of life and then a new stage is coming, like there's so much newness and we're so busy with that thing that's coming that we don't really think about all the things that can be activated that really need healing in that process. So, of course, you can go watch Jessica's presentation, who mentioned about life transitions and different things that you can do when you are going through a transition and that can be supported. And of course, she's particularly works with women who are wanting to become pregnant or are pregnant or have been pregnant and just gave birth and going through that transition. But that's not the only transition. Blanca and I want to take this opportunity to talk to you about what other types of transitions there are, the types of things that come up when we experience those transitions, and then how one of our practitioners could help you in working through and healing through that transition.
So another type of doula is death doula. And sharing from my own experience, I would definitely suggest that when the time comes that one of your family members is about to pass or when they're in hospice, it would be a perfect opportunity for you to seek a death doula. I have had different members, family members pass away all in different ways. And when my grandma passed away, the nurse, her nurse was gave us not just assurance that she was doing well, that she was being taken care of, but also as well explaining to us all the process. And that made it so much easier. It's not about minimizing your pain because it is very painful, but it does help so much that someone else is holding their space for you. So I do recommend that you seek out someone else outside of your family whenever there's a family crisis or some kind of transition. Someone else's perspective and holding space for you is very important.
And of course, you don't have to wait until a family member is going to pass to seek help with that transition. We can also, in part of our healing journey, is know that at some point we are going to pass too. And we can start preparing ourselves for that transition so that then there's not as much burden on our family. And a lot of times the burden comes when there's so much pain and conflict and problems, especially in the family, that are unresolved. So rather than leaving them unresolved and then knowing that people are waiting for that son who hasn't visited for years to come, right? Like not having to go through that experience. And so seeking some of that healing before you get to that point. And it's not always easy, but we know as energy healing practitioners and as spiritual mentors that a lot of the difficulty that comes with death and with passing has to do with so many unresolved issues in that person's life between different family members. And so it's never too late to try to resolve them. One of the things that death doulas help you to do is how to do some of that resolution to make the passing easier for the person. But again, we don't have to wait. We know that we can start doing some of that work beforehand.
And if you don't have someone or don't know of a death doula, you can just do it on your own. Just hold each other, give each other some space. My grandma, some time before she got sick, she knew that she was going to pass in the next couple months or so. And so she herself decided to say sorry and to do her say start saying her goodbyes to us. And then unfortunately, I've also had other family members that we did not have the opportunity to say goodbye. And so don't wait until you do know that you are sick or that someone is passing to come together as a family to help each other through these transitions. It would be very unfortunate that something tragic in the morning, you could say goodbye to your family members, they're going to work, they're going to school, and something happens and you did not have time to do a healing, to say goodbye. And so you yourself holding space for each other whenever there's a problem, whenever there's any misunderstanding, take that opportunity at that time. Don't let it go too long without resolving it, without talking about it.
Another transition that we, especially as women, have trouble with is midlife transition as we're moving from our mothering years and then we move into perimenopause and then menopause. That is a transition that we are starting to hear more about in mainstream culture, but we still know that there's a lot of doctors that don't know how to guide women through that transition. There's a lot of things, mental, emotional, physical, that women experience that they don't know that it's because of this transitional time. This is also a thing that you can seek holistic healing with. Some of our herbalists talk about how plants and herbs can support you in that journey, just making it easier as your body goes through this transition, and to support not just your body, but also supporting your emotions. And then, of course, seeking community to help you as you go through those years, because it's not a transition that happens from one month to another, right? It just takes years. For some women it takes a decade for them to fully be transitioning. No, that is another transition, and then there's a lot of help and support for that transition as well.
So yes, I also highly encourage you to seek community. In fact, not just community, to seek your family and to open up these spaces for these kinds of conversations. I had my grandma and my mother who had different womanhood transitions. And so now that I'm going through my menopause, I really didn't have anyone to tell me what was going on with my body. So having these spaces, shared experiences is highly important for everyone to know, to learn from. And also, I know right now we're talking about menopause or women that in their older ages, but how beautiful it would be that we also include our young women, that we also include that transition when we have our first menstrual cycle. With my also personal experience was not very a positive one. Again, sometimes our family members might treat us like they don't want us to grow up, or they treat us so differently that they don't want to touch us because our bodies are growing. And so it is also important for us to talk through those transitions and encourage self-love and self-compassion when we're going through these processes.
And so many times when we need healing, when we are in a transition, is because we did not experience our initial transitions in a very healthy way. So, especially if you are going through transitions yourself that are difficult, as we are becoming elders, know that we can set up our young people to have more positive experiences so then they don't have to seek healing as they're going through these transitions in older age, right? They can seek support, but they don't necessarily need to seek healing from these negative traumatic experiences that may have had when they were younger. So a lot of times we think of healing work in terms of solving a problem, but really healing work can also be about setting up a good experience. So setting up that good experience for that young girl who's going to have her first menstrual cycle, right? Setting up good experiences for the boys who are coming into adulthood. So our culture doesn't really have a way of honoring these stages and how we're moved from one stage to another. And that's where we can turn to our indigenous ancestors who had good ways of relating and moving from one stage of life to another. So I think especially those of us who are in this healing journey and we are committed to this journey for ourselves, knowing that we can look back at the younger generations and how can we assist so that then they don't have to go through the same thing that we did.
So I am pretty sure that most of the participants or the viewers have been women. And I would also like to encourage you, women, moms, grandmoms, to invite your sons, your children, males, to come and watch these videos as well. It is very much needed and very useful throughout life that our young men are also guided through the life stages. My both of my brothers, as they were growing up, would share that they did not have my father who didn't teach them how to grow up, how to be a man, how to treat a woman. And many of our conversations here in these women's circles are, I'm being mistreated, I'm going through a terrible divorce or violent relationship. And this is the opportunities for the men in our lives to come and see these conversations, to be included, and to for other men to be role models and step up for the so that the children, our future generations, would also be guided through our experiences on what not to do.
And so, of course, we're talking here about major life transitions, but also I wanted to point out that there is also minor ones that we can honor. So there's, for example, there's the beginning of the school year as kids transition from the summer to a more regimented and disciplined schedule. There's a transition from waking time to sleep, right? And so you can use, for example, a tea to help and to honor and to help your body wind down from the day. Once you start thinking about transitions and how we can start honoring these and how they can make our life really smoother, we can start seeing that we really experience transitions all the time. And we're just so busy with our life and with all the things that we have to do that we don't really slow down to notice. And I think if we do notice the little transitions, then the bigger transitions are not such a big deal. They're not these things that become so all consuming because we have been more present even with these more smaller, seemingly insignificant transitions that are actually still very important.
And I would like to add that a very important transition would be that from when we find ourselves in survival mode and are trying to get to the other side, the opposite side, in finding inner peace. For me, my experience was to have a lot of patience, to treat myself as if I'm the another person, because very likely it is much easier us to treat someone else with kindness and compassion and take care of the other person as if they're a baby. So that transition requires self-love and self-compassion, treating yourself just as you would your own child. And so that transition is very needed in our personal lives because many people are probably find themselves in these situations, and in order for you to shift yourself from this survival mode into the peaceful mindset, you do need a constant discipline and compassion and repeated patterns so that we can break those old patterns and create new ones that are more positive and helpful for us.
So we just wanted to open up this conversation about life transitions because I know we had one conversation with Jessica that did speak about a very important time in a woman's life when she's going through that transition. That of course involves much more than the woman, right? There's a baby and then there's a husband and there's other kids. But we wanted to open that conversation as to what other types of transitions that we experience and that we may not necessarily think about. Think about what are the types of transitions that you undergo or that you experience. Where have you found difficulty in them? How can you start honoring your movement from one stage to another stage? And then how can you seek support? Because a lot of times it's not necessarily healing that you need to do. Sometimes you do, but sometimes all you need is support so that somebody who has done that can serve as a bridge because they already have that experience and you don't have to flounder in the dark as you're navigating from one stage of life to another. So seek out these practitioners. There's also the RGV Wellness Directory. There's a lot of practitioners in that directory that you can also seek support with. I hope that these different conversations that you've been hearing throughout the week have resonated with you, have given you a way or a path forward for your own healing, for what you may need. These conversations will be available to you, so you can always come back to them later. So maybe this time is not the best time for you to learn about herbalism, but maybe next month will be a better time for you. Just know that these resources are here to support you. And all of these really, in my estimation, had to do with how practitioners support people through transitions, even though they didn't really talk about it in those terms. But it's these transitions that cause chronic pain or stress, or that cause these patterns. And then that's what we tend to seek. So I think of transitions more as kind of a macro view of our healing journey. And then we start looking at these little micro things that we need to fix as we go through our healing journey. But if we're more conscious of how we're navigating through life and how we're navigating from one stage of life to another, then really it's just part of the journey, and it's seeking support and not thinking like that we really need to fix ourselves. We just need support in navigating how we deal with life.
So yes, and the next time that you're going through a transition and yet you're probably struggling, don't ask yourself or don't complain, what is wrong with me? But ask, why is this happening? What am I supposed to be learning here? And remember to consider everything that has happened to you. So more than likely, if you're repeating a pattern, is because of something that happened to you. You don't have to continue being that person or repeating that pattern. So just have compassion, seek someone else whenever you need help. You don't have to be by yourself. And in reality, healing comes with community. I highly encourage you to come to our community. Come seek us, have a coffee with us, have tea, and let's chat.
So I encourage you, just like Blanca just did, to seek out support and know that having difficulty as you're going through the transition is normal. And we just need to normalize that it's not easy to go from what was known to what is unknown. And that's really what a transition is. Seeking the help of someone or a community can help that path be a lot smoother. We still have to go through it, but we don't have to suffer while we're going through it. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you've been enjoying these presentations. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about today, go ahead and drop a comment below, and we'd be more than happy to continue the conversation.